As we still process the trade deadline ramifications, Mike Grier met with the media reacting to some of his quotes.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, we cover your team every day. If you want to be an everyday, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be looking at some of the quotes from Mike Grier coming out of his press availability after the NHL trade deadline. We're going to talk about, of course, about the Zetterland trade, what Ostapchuk means for the Sharks going forward, plus the Sharks starting to build, Cam Lund expected to sign, and we'll quickly look at the Sharks versus Isles game that happened on Saturday night. So let's start with Mike Grier, who did meet for about 35 minutes with the press or with the media after the trade deadline, as he typically does. And he was asked a bunch of questions, of course, like why the Zetterland trade, why Walman trade, et cetera, et cetera. And like one of the interesting quotes I didn't clip for, but is he didn't go into this trade line expecting to trade either of those players, Fabian Zetterland or Jake Walman, but he ended up doing because he felt like he got offers that were too good to be true. And with the Walman one, like we've discussed before, and I think it's worth saying again, like Jake Walman is, I think, great asset management, right? Taking a guy plus a second round pick to acquire him for nothing, boosting up his value for a little bit, and then turning around and flipping him for a 2026 first round pick. And yes, that 2026 first round pick is going to be at the back end of the draft, and the Sharks now have a hole on their roster that they're going to have to try to fill. But I think for the Sharks, again, like Jake Walman, really nice story. You know, he played well while he was here. He definitely had a better first half of the season than I think he did the second half of the season. But was Walman going to be part of your long-term plans? Maybe, most likely not. So I think that's great asset management there. The Zetterland trade, right? We are still scratching our heads collectively over like why now, et cetera, et cetera. And he was asked, like why now and why like a guy like Zach Ostapchuk and what he brings. So here's what Mike Grier said about Ostapchuk and potentially building 3 C's down the middle.
To add a 21-year-old centerman who can, fit in behind Mac and Will. In this league, you can see it. In the long term, that's 3 pretty good centers, 21 and under. And we got Winnie here to kind of help insulate those guys. But you got to be strong down the middle, and this kid gives us something a little bit different. Size, pace, hardness, physicality. You don't find many of those types of players. They're hard to find, and everyone's looking for them. So,
All right. One really quickly, the video. I know the video and the audio don't match. I'm sorry. That's what they gave us. And yeah. Anyway, but Mike Grier wanting to that 3C position, wanting to get someone harder and stuff. I get that. I totally get that from a kind of building perspective of trying to find a player who fits the timeline a little bit. And remember, Fabian Zetterland, 25, going to be 26 here soon. Going to want a new contract, or is due for a new contract. I 100% get that. And he later went on to say, we are a worse team than we are today, but we're building towards the future. We're going to talk about the building part here in a little bit, but I get that. My one thing is 3 C's. Like, yes, everyone's looking for them, but they're easier to find than I think people, like Mikael Granlund, you got him for free. Perfect 3C on most teams, right? Ostapchuk and whatever he ends up being, like, it just, that part confuses me a little bit. Of, you traded a guy who was a legitimate middle six, second line, third line winger, for a guy whose ceiling is a 3C, right? And yes, you get a second round pick for it in this year's draft, and this year's draft is weak. And we'll see what the Sharks do with that second round pick. So I'm not trying to like kill the trade right now. And we felt like this before after the Timo Meier trade, right? Who's Fabian Zetterland? Who's Shakir Mukhamadullin? And Zetterland was great during his time here. Mukhamadulin's really started to kind of come along now, but this one's a little bit head scratching. Also, I think this also tells you what they think about Philip Beestead and his development, because we've kind of always penciled in Philip Beestead as your 3C going forward. And I think this tells a lot about what the Sharks think about Beestead and his future as kind of a potential 3C. And we'll see. I mean, Beestead's been hurt right now, and he's had an okay season in the Barracuda, right? We saw a lot of scoring production last season. This season has been much more consistent, which you would expect in his first full season in the AHL. But it's interesting that they made this move now. And again, Beestead is also 21, 22, it's not like Beestead's some old dude or whatever. Like, it makes you think a lot about Beestead and his future with the Sharks. So he gets into, I think the big quote though from this press conference, right, is you can't win with all Will Smiths and Macklin Celebrini. So let's hear what that quote here.
You can't just have all Macklin Celebrinis and Will Smiths. You're not going to win. I think that's pretty obvious to most people who've been in the game. You need all types of players, all types of characters to win in this game, and that's our job, is try and build a roster and put a roster together. So, no, he's not a Will Smith or Quentin Musty. Like I just said, we feel pretty good about the skill and talent and scoring we have, but we don't have that profile of someone who's, 6'3", really good skater, good details, hard, physical. We don't have that.
And again, I totally get it. And the Sharks do have a lot of scoring coming, right? Like you said, Quentin Musty, you have Igor Chernyshov, who I think is going to be a really nice kind of glue guy on a line. Kasper Holstein, who's probably going to be a, power play specialist, forechecking type of player. I think as you get more comfortable from a guy like Colin Graff, the Sharks do have scoring coming, right? That's the hope, right? Especially like Quentin Musty, who a hat trick and 2 assists today, but it was very quietly kind of almost getting overshadowed by Chernyshov. Don't forget, Quentin Musty's awesome. But I do, again, like, those guys aren't making an impact right now, right? And going back to Zetterland, who's a 20-goal scorer right now, you could have, if maybe you didn't feel like Zetterland's a long-term piece, right? You could have just signed him to his 1-year qualifying offer and then traded him next season or something like that, or traded him this offseason, or if you didn't feel, but it's still a little bit of a head scratcher. And, I think for Mike Grier, we're definitely seeing what he values in team building. And that's, 2 awesome lines up top, and then a bottom 6, which I think is a little bit more kind of meat and potatoes. And I am curious to see if this changes or what happens here, because I do think that third line needs to be a line that can actually produce and score. And you go back to the Sharks heydays and stuff, right? Having Couture, Hurdle, and then Joe Thornton as your third line center, on a third line that had Marcus Sorensen and Kevin LeBanc. Yes, I know those guys, but those guys were perfect in their role. And having a guy like Joe Thornton, when you had the best third line center in the entire NHL, that's what made those teams really good. So I am curious to see and how this kind of strategy of more of a meat and potatoes bottom six works out, and if you have to rely so much on your top six, and maybe like I'm just curious. It's a long term question, and Mike Grier could change, and Ostapchuk. I think there's like he said in the thing, there's plenty of offense that's still there, and a guy who may have been rushed to the NHL a little bit, right? He's with the Barracuda right now. And, I do expect him to maybe marinate a little bit longer at the Barracuda, and he has produced offense in the American Hockey League. So we'll see. Again, like I still understand the sentiment of like why Zetterland and why now, but Mike Grier's got a plan, and we're going to see kind of where this takes us. So we're going to talk about Mike Grier building, as he's kind of alludes to that this is hopefully the last time where this can be a full like sell, as he says. We'll talk about Cam Lund expected to sign and some of the prospects, what to expect from them. And then we'll get to the Sharks versus Isles, some quick takeaways from that. So we'll get to all that here in just 1 second. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I like the ones with the shell, like the shelled in ones. I like opening it up, getting a little crack. It's very satisfying. Just salt ones for me. I'm happy as a clam, but they have plenty of different varieties. If you like no shells, they have plenty of those, plenty of different awesome flavors to choose from as well. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, before we continue to discuss Mike Grier's press availability, we're going to, again, talk about building, talk about some of the prospects here. Do want to, of course, thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't yet, perfect time to subscribe. We did hit the 4K on YouTube, so appreciate everybody. Now the push to 5K starts. So if you haven't subscribed, got a draft profile coming tomorrow. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. All right. So Grier was asked, like, okay, what next? Right. And he mentioned that hopefully this is the last time that we're like full on sell everything that isn't bolted down. So here's what he said regarding that.
The hope is that this is kind of the last, deadline where we're kind of shipping everyone out, and it's time to start building. We have some good building blocks with our young guys. We got some good vets here too. Toph and Mario and Winberg. We got some good vets, and we got Eki coming on to take some leadership role as well. So we expect those guys to keep getting better internally for sure, but it's time to start building, and where that's using this capital of the first round picks we've acquired over the last month or so, and trying to go out and acquire some good players using those, and maybe even some of the prospects where it's time for us to start doing that, and dip into free agency and also see what's out there and start surrounding these guys. And so that's kind of the idea, that this kind of phase is hopefully for the most part over, of just sell. Now it's time to start building. I'm sure we'll still have some decisions to make down the road on players, but now the hope is to really use some of these assets and start building.
So my big takeaway is expect a wild summer from Mike Grier. Right? I tweeted about this, where I do think Mike Grier is planning something big. Right? You have all these assets, multiple first round picks this year, multiple first round picks next year, multiple second round picks. Like you in the next 2 drafts, like you have a lot of stuff. And yes, drafting and developing is, the way to go. But we've seen Mike Grier do this with Askarov, right? You traded Tomas Hertl, you got back Edstrom, first round pick, and you turn around and package that stuff to go get Askarov to fill one of the biggest holes in your roster, or at least in your pipeline, right? What's the biggest hole the Sharks have right now in their pipeline? Right-handed defenseman, right? Puck moving, right-handed defenseman. I would not be surprised if this summer Mike Grier gets a right-handed defenseman, a guy who can play in the NHL right now. Because again, like you, as much fun as it is, look like all the Sharks could be tanking for 2026 or 2027 for DuPont or Gavin McKenna or whoever. Like, you can't tank forever, right? You have to start building, and I do think the Sharks start building. And it was interesting that he mentioned prospects as well too, right? Because yes, having the best prospect pool in the NHL is awesome, but you got to do something with it. And I think he's identified his dudes, guys that he believes in. And you wonder if some of those other guys who maybe don't fit start to get shipped out. And again, I think the Osopchuk trade means a lot for Philip Beested, who, again, we really penciled in as a third line center. I don't know. That's just a gut feeling on what's going on there. So he did mention, he was asked about some of the prospects and stuff, and kind of if he expects those guys to start to get, once their seasons are over, start to get some looks on the AHL. He mentioned Quentin Musty and Igor Chernyshov for sure. I believe Musty, I think Sudbury might have clinched the playoff spot. If not, they're really close to clinching a playoff spot at some point here. So, but like that Musty team, Sudbury, like I don't know how far they go. They could be a potential team that is kind of one and done with the playoffs. And then Quentin Musty can come and play in the AHL, as we all have been waiting for. So he did mention like him. He also something with Igor Chernyshov, who's kind of in the same, like Saginaw is very much like they have to outscore their problems. Their team, kind of a weird team as well. So both those guys could be in San Jose at some point here to play with the Barracuda during their playoff push. One guy he did also mention was Cam Lund. So if you remember, Lund is a junior right now at Northeastern. Northeastern is not a good team, at all. Their Hockey East opening round starts on Wednesday, March 12th. And if they get knocked out, his season could be over as of this week. The expectation is they're going to get Cam Lund into San Jose here. And I made the argument earlier this season, Cam Lund needs to either transfer or turn pro. Like he's wasting his time on Northeastern, a really bad Northeastern team where he is easily the best player, just has no help around him. So it's good to see Lund get that ELC and get over here to San Jose. And once he kind of, once we get a little bit closer to Lund coming to San Jose, we can talk more about that. But I do love the decision because Cam Lund does kind of feel like the forgotten prospect when it comes to some of right? We talk about Musty and we talk about all these other guys and stuff all the time, but Cam Lund definitely kind of feels like the forgotten prospect because of just the team and the environment that he is in right now. So I'm really excited for Lund to get over and actually get to play with some real dudes here soon. That's yes. Did also mention Havlin, wanting to get him over here. He did mention that Havlin, because of he's in a bit of a fight to for relegation and all that fun stuff, or trying to get promoted. He might not make it over in time, but I do think that is a sign that for a guy who, again, still has not signed his ELC, we could see Havlet over here next season for the Sharks. And I think that would be good because Havlet has had a weird development path. And he has played much better now that he's actually getting like real minutes over in your garden in the Hockey Allsvenskan. So could be another potential guy, especially if you're thinking right for the Barracuda. Kenyoni might graduate, if not, he's not going to be long for the Barracuda next season. Muka Madulan's clearly graduated. Jack Thompson might graduate, is probably ready to graduate as well. Like they're going to have some holes over there. And I think a guy like Matthias Havled can kind of come in and help fill in one of those puck moving defenseman holes for the Barracuda and get used to playing over North America. And I think it's time. It's time for Havlet. So we're going to discuss the Sharks Isles game, which was, it was really frustrating. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. The great thing is, right, they make it easy. They take the stress out of meal planning. I hate meal planning. I have to do it every weekend, go buy all the groceries, come home, put it away, cook it. It's just a pain. So they make the convenience. It's unbeatable. There's no prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use code LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnNHL50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off free plus free shipping on your first box. All right. Before we finish up, of course want to thank you guys for making a Locked On Sharks your first listen. When you're done with this episode, you should go check out the Locked On NHL show. Gil and I just broke down the whole trade deadline on Friday. I'm also on every Tuesday with Seth. There's if you're tired of listening to me, there's a rotating cast of hosts on every day. So covering the biggest stories in the NHL, and especially as we start to get to the playoffs. Good way to kind of keep track of what's going on in the playoffs over at Locked On NHL, or follow any of the shows here in the Bay Area: Locked On Warriors, Locked On A's, Locked On Giants, Locked On Niners. Plenty of great stuff here at the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. All right, Sharks Isles. 20 shots on goal in the first period and down 0-2 feels so Sharks. No, I mean, you do have to, my biggest takeaway is you do have to applaud how this team continues to fight and play well. And that's all we're asking for right now, right? This team right now, as we're recording, has a 6-point gap between themselves and Chicago when it comes to the number 1 pick odds heading into the draft lottery with 17 games left. But this team continues to play hard. And that's all we're asking for right now. Celebrini was all over the ice on Saturday night. 10 shots on goal. So it's a franchise record for a rookie. Ridiculous performance from him. That pass to Will Smith very late in the game that made it 4-2. I know it was a power play and the Sharks had 6 skaters, etc. But that pass to Will Smith across the ice, no look, and puts it right in Will Smith's wheelhouse. And Will Smith continued to shoot, young man, because when you shoot, good things tend to happen for the Sharks. But that's all you want to see, right? Is just this team to continue. And that first period, man, they put the pedal to the metal on the Isles and just got Sorokin'd. And that was even including the Isles having 2 power plays. And yes, I know they scored on 1. But That's all we're asking for. So I will say it's, among the forward lines, like it was good to see those young guys play. We saw the Wenberg Macklin flip again. So we did see Eklund, Toffoli, Celebrini reunited for a little bit. We also saw Wenberg back with Will Smith. So we'll continue to kind of monitor that. I still like Macklin and Will is really fun. But I mean, whatever. I don't have a preference on where Macklin plays. If it's with Eklund or Toffoli, that's awesome. If it's with Will Smith, that's awesome too. I also thought Patrick Giles showed off he's got a little bit there. There might be something there with him. I still think he's probably more likely your kind of AHL, NHL tweener type of guy where if you need to play a couple NHL games here and there, you're not it's at the end of the world. But if he has to spend time in the AHL, that's fine too, to show off a little bit of speed and stuff there, some hands. But overall, I think like you outplayed the Islanders for a good chunk of this game, and you just ran into a hot goal. Like you just ran into Sorokin, who's can still be one of the best goalies. I don't think he's up there where like Shesterkin and Hellebuck and stuff like that. But I think he can be he's kind of a tier below, and he showed it. Like the Sharks put it on in the first period, and he was just like, "Nope, I got this, guys." Kind of further to the point of Sorokin and how he performed. 38 saves on 40 shots, 2 goals on 4 expected goals for. The Sharks got 12 high danger shots on him. And he made 11 saves. Like it happens, man. But if you keep playing like that's all we can ask for, right? And I am curious to see though if we do see Romanov, especially coming up here, right? You play Nashville on Tuesday and you play Chicago. These are 2 big games for the tank right here. Nashville and Chicago this week. I think you got Romanov in there. And Georgiev has played well. For the most part, he continues the battle. Like, I do think I would like to see Romanov get a shot here, at least just to give Georgiev a day off, because the poor guy's has been run into the ground between his time with Colorado and his recent time with the San Jose Sharks. Would like to see him get some time in there, but some other standouts. Shakir Mukhamadullin continues to impress. Another point. He has, I think, really found his footing in the NHL. And, we went back to kind of mid-season, right? I did a whole, like, what's up with Shakir Mukhamadullin. I talked about how his role had changed with the Barracuda. On the Sharks, his role has gone back to that kind of 23-24 season where he's given an opportunity to do a little bit more offensively because the Sharks don't have a lot of offensive players. I think he's performing really well. I think his defense has been very good. We see him kind of making some good decisions offensively. I'd love to see him get a crack at running a power play unit. I don't know if the 5-forward unit right now is working super. I mean, they did score, but they have I wonder if Liljegren maybe runs the first unit and then Mukhamadullin can run the second unit. And then you put Wenberg on the second unit with that. I'd like to see some tinkering with that with the power play here for the Sharks in these last, 17, 18 games. That's what it's for, right? Is kind of tinker and let's play with some stuff. That way you have some ideas going to the summer of what you need to acquire, what you need to maybe feel like you're pretty solid on. But I'd love to see Mukhamadullin get a shot to run a power play and see how it performs with him doing so, because I do think he can do it. And I think he can do it really well. And also gives you a little bit of a help on shorthanded opportunities, which have been, the Sharks have given up some too. The penalty kill continues to be bad right now, and you would expect that, especially with all the pieces that the Sharks have taken away, right? Cunnin, Granlund, like Sturm, like you're losing a lot of pieces there. So I do expect the penalty kill to continue to kind of hemorrhage goals here. So just stay out of the box right now. So it was a game where you feel like if that game's played 10 times and the Sharks play the way they did the first period, the Sharks probably win 9 times. But Sorokin, he's pretty good sometimes too. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow. Draft profile. One of our old friends stops by. So make sure you guys are following along for that. Of course, you can find Locked On Sharks wherever you get podcasts and watch on YouTube as well. Again, thank you to everybody subscribed as we've now hit 4,000. The push to 5,000 begins. So, yeah. Also, you can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Until tomorrow, bye, friends.